Okay. So I'm gonna, oh yeah, you're showing up as a co-host now, so it worked. You're on mute, but I heard you from down the hallway.
Oh, okay, good to go.
Yeah, so I think you're good. And you remember how to share your screen and everything?
Oh yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I think we're good to go.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm just gonna hide myself for now. Do you want to turn it back off and start in a few minutes? Elaine, or we can chit chat. We can chit chat with Elaine for a few minutes.
Hello there. Good morning.
This is Randy, Elaine. I don't know if you guys have met. Maybe you've met. You're on mute, hun.
That's not going to work. I don't
There
work
we
well
go.
on mute.
You're not on mute anymore.
Hi, Randy. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
I'm just trying to get dialed in here.
Yeah. Maybe you and Randy met in Louisiana, maybe.
That was more than a year ago. I don't remember. I don't, besides that, I don't like New Orleans. So I that is like a big blur in my head. Once we go and we come back, it's just a blur.
I had so much fun. I loved it. I had so much fun.
You're more of a party animal than I am, Laura.
I guess. I just loved the food. Oh my God, the food was amazing.
Yes, it was very good.
It was fun, huh, Randy?
I'm gonna go grab something, so I'll be back.
All right.
How are you, Miss Laura?
All right. How are you?
I'm good.
Do you want to talk later?
Sure.
What's your day looking like?
Well, I've got some free time now.
Yeah, you mean at 4? Okay, me too.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'm like, is this code for something? I mean, like, what does this all mean? Smoke's really bad here today.
I know, it's bad over here too. Actually,
Yeah,
I felt like yesterday in Santa Cruz was the worst.
Oh, well, it was all over. So
Yeah.
it's not bad in Aptos today.
Yeah.
But as soon as I hit, because I went by Pam and Neil's on my way in, and then as soon as I left there and I got off, I went up, I'm trying to remember which way I came.
I woke up with a stomach ache at my house. It was just so bad, and it was making me nauseous. Yeah, and then somebody posted on Facebook last night, is this smoke making you nauseous? And I was like, yes. And our office definitely smells a little stinky over here.
I noticed yesterday, I took my mom, she had a doctor's appointment in the morning. So I picked her up and I took her out to Aptos for a doctor's appointment. We stayed in the car, right? And they come out to the car.
Yeah.
And I went to go do something and I smelled my sweater later in the day, and my sweater just reeked of smoke. I was like,
I
bad.
think all my clothes are smoky. Probably everybody's are at this point.
Yeah, it's just weird though when you smell it on yourself.
Yeah. Which means your hair probably smells like smoke too.
Oh, honey, I put freshy stuff in that. Hi, Marty.
Hi guys, good morning. How you all doing?
Morning, sweetie. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad things are getting better with the air quality around here. So we're safe, and I'm breathing better on and off.
Good. Laura and I were just complaining about it.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's we just got to get through probably another week of this. I hope it's not much longer than that, where it really starts to clear up. You know, there was a couple of days of blue sky, which was nice.
Well, last night was beautiful in Aptos. It was beautiful.
Was it?
Yep. It was very pretty. I can see the stars.
Pretty, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then there were stars out last night, and I could see the moon. It was very clear.
Yep.
And then
up with your flonase, guys.
Yeah, it was about 4 o'clock this morning. I looked out and I was like, nope, that's gone.
That's very early. 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, I will share a secret with you. So my husband used to get up really early and leave for work, right? And so that used to wake the dogs up. Well, he's not working, but the dogs still wake up really early, and they want to go out. They want to get peed. They want to be fed, and then they come back and they go to bed. And they will stay in bed until I get up. So I can get up an hour later, 3 hours later, doesn't matter. They don't move. They're like comatose. So that's what happens at my house in the mornings. So I get up, I do that, and we all go back to bed.
Cool.
My
So you
dog
guys are safe.
that too.
Your dog does that too?
Yeah, I'm the one who gets up with them and lets them out. So it's whenever I get up, you know.
I'm texting Renee.
Yeah, we just finished our coaching class and she was trying to
Oh.
log in back in. Yeah.
Oh, good. Who's teaching today?
Randy.
Nice.
Right here. Who asked me that? Or who asked?
Elaine.
Hi, Elaine. Where are you from, Elaine?
Santa Cruz.
Oh,
She's
okay,
the-
good.
She's the team leader in Santa Cruz.
I like Santa Cruz.
We do too. I
Sometimes
like
I go
that.
there.
My claim to
Sometimes I go there
fame is
just to
higher
kick
than
back
Laura.
in the beach and listen to the ocean.
Well, here's what happens when you live here. We don't really go to the beach.
Yeah, I've heard things like that about different places.
I have to say I'm thoroughly enjoying it this year because there's less people around. It's more so just the crowds, Randy, is like when you live there, you stay away from the crowds.
Yeah, I've heard things like that. People that live in Vegas hardly ever go to the Strip.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
I've been to Great America about 1/10 of the time I've been to Disneyland.
Mhm.
You know, I've never been to Great America.
You haven't missed much.
I don't like roller coasters.
Oh, I think I've been twice.
Yeah, and I don't like a bunch of people.
I haven't been to the boardwalk in years because my kids are older and, you know.
Maybe
No
when this
reason.
is all over, Laura, we should play hooky one day and you and I should go to the boardwalk during the day.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I'm not riding the roller coaster though.
But that'd be fun just to play hooky with you anyway.
If we're gonna just play hooky, then we'll go up to Chaminade and we'll go
Yeah,
to the spa and lay by the pool.
there you go. Sit
I
out with
heard that
that
in
view.
Tahoe, the people that live in Tahoe are putting up signs that says Tahoe's full, go back.
Oh,
Oh, I've been posting stuff all over Facebook. Don't come here.
yeah.
There are people right now that are evacuated and they're staying like out at the KOA camp by Manresa Beach, and they're being kicked out because they've got people coming in for vacation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just not right.
I guess I should silence my phone.
Thank you. Well, it's 9 o'clock. Let's give it one more minute. Is that okay, Randy?
Not a problem.
All right. I do know, I think Renee has, Renee Nuri has, she's using Zoom at like 10:15, I think, today. So
Well, it's an hour class, so we
Yeah.
should be done.
you should be good.
It'll be packed because there's a lot of information to go over, because this used to be a 2-hour class.
Yep.
So we're gonna zoom through it on Zoom. How about that?
Well, I had that when I taught that one, I was like, I got the material. I'm like, how am I going to cram this into an hour?
Yeah.
Then I figured out that half of the packet was the self-study stuff.
Right. Yeah. Actually, Randy, she doesn't have it on there, so maybe she's just doing that meeting as a phone call. So if you take a little longer, that's totally fine. Well,
Okay.
we're like, good morning, everybody. Elaine and I are here just to say congratulations on another successful Ignite. Today is the last day of this series of Ignite, and I know more people are going to jump on, but Rob, the Campbell team leader, it must be just being a little bit late. He's supposed to be jumping on with us as well, but we just wanted to say congrats and hope you guys enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. There's recordings of every single session, so if you want to go back, and there he is.
There he is.
Look at that background. That's super cool.
Yeah, because there's not enough mayhem in the world, Rob.
Hi, Rob. So yeah, if you guys have sessions you want to rewatch, they're all recorded, and the different offices can get you the recordings. And we want to, of course, Randy's our only instructor today, but thank you, Randy. Well, Elaine and Rob both instructed too, so thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to say anything else? You guys want to say anything else?
No, I'm just really proud of you guys for doing this. It's a lot, takes a lot of tenacity to make a commitment, to follow through, to watch what you're not able to attend. So good job, and hit the ground running.
Yeah. Rob, you want to say anything?
I think Elaine just hit it. It's a lot of work, but you guys stuck with it, and just congratulations.
Yep. Well, thanks, you guys. We just wanted to say hi, congrats, and then Randy, you can take it away if you please introduce yourself, and we will exit. Okay.
Good seeing you guys.
Bye, everybody. Have a great
Bye,
day.
have fun.
Well, good morning. I'm Randy Sedano. I am in the San Jose Gateway office. Been in this office maybe about a year and a half. Been in the business since the mid-90s. So I've had a couple transactions under my belt, and I've seen a lot of different things and learned a lot of different ways to make things go smooth and to hopefully prevent potential problems that could come up in an escrow. We are in a business where there are many people, many entities, many personalities, and just about every property is different. So with all these variables, it does create potential issues and problems that can come up. So over the years, learned how to kind of look ahead and figure out what is a potential issue and what is it that could become a problem later on. And then we're able to address it and fix it, or at least minimize it right from the onset. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the material that is provided in the course. Some of it will relate to our area and some of it won't, because these courses are written for all Keller Williams nationwide. And so you'll find that our business is very localized. Things will vary from one county to the next, especially from one part of the state to the next. And so what I am going to do is I'm going to cover the material that they have, and it's pretty general. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back and look at it a little bit more detailed to how it applies to our area and our way of doing transactions here in the South Bay area. Now, we're a little bit more fast-paced than most areas, and I'll explain a little bit more on that later. But one of the things that I always like to do is tailor it to our area, our way of doing business, because there's no sense in us learning how to do things in Texas or Illinois or wherever the case may be. So the course material, the beginning will be what I'm not sure what you guys have as participants, but some of it is going to be in that order, and some of it is going to be added slides that I put in because, like I say, I want to tailor it to our area. So there'll be some additional slides that I added to the presentation. And so if anybody has anything to say, any questions, feel free. At the end of certain sections, I'm going to just ask for questions or comments, and I'll wait a little bit because I know sometimes it takes a little while for you to find your mute button or unmute button. And so, or you can wave at the screen. So, whatever you want to do to get attention. And if I don't have any questions that come in, then we'll move on to the next section. Okay. So I am going to go to share screen and start the presentation. So just give me a second here. All right. Everybody see the screen? It says Ignite.
Yes.
Wave, say something. Okay, good. So anyways, we're in the last class, contract to close. Now, I don't care how good of a job you do getting a deal together, it's no good if it doesn't close. I don't care how big the sales price is and how big the commission check is that you're expecting, it's no good unless it closes, right? So we're going to talk about getting these deals closed. And some of the things that when we have certain topics, it may trigger a memory on a situation I had that can kind of bring it to life. Okay, so I am ready to get started if you guys are. Any questions before we start? And always feel free. This is an open discussion. So this first slide says what we're going to focus on today. It's a little bit misleading because we're not going to focus on all this stuff, not even all the red. We're going to focus on number 4 on run your business, transaction management, closing. Because like I said, it's closing is what's important. And we're going to talk about the different people involved, the different steps that you have to take, the different things to look out for, deadlines, the different parties, who does what, when it's supposed to be done, and how to follow up. So listen close, because this is originally a 2-hour class. We're going to compact it down into 1 hour. So we're going to go rather quick, and we'll start with the general, very general, and then we'll go into the part where I said I have it more detailed for our area. Okay, so here we go. So it's going to start with the buyers and the sellers' timelines. Timelines, basically what it is just keeping track of what's supposed to take place and when. And there's more than one way to do it. Some people just do it like bullet points on certain dates. This is supposed to happen, this is supposed to happen, this is supposed to happen. Some people do an actual monthly calendar, and they'll plot the dates on the actual calendar. There's no one way to do it. It's just very important to keep track, find what works for you, and try to make it a consistent system that is in place, because every time you do it, if you're doing it the same way, it's going to get better and better and better, and you will become more effective and get more deals closed. Okay, so let's take a look at this first one. This is called Build a Buyer Timeline, and this one here is pretty general. Talks about execute a contract, work with a lender, home inspections, home insurance, home warranty, and closing. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes to that, but it gives you a general idea of the general order on which things take place. And once again, it's going to vary from area to area, because in our area, a lot of times the listings are going to have the home inspections and the disclosures done right up front. So there's times when the buyer will have already done that before they even get in contract. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But all this is to help you keep track of what's going on, what has taken place, what has been done, what you can check off, and hopefully get you to that closing table. Any questions on the buyer timeline so far?
No.
No, if not, then we're going to go on to this basic seller timeline. Very similar, accept an offer, there's inspections and appraisal, and you close. Obviously, there's a whole lot more that goes on than that, and we'll get into that. But once again, it's just a method. They're trying to get across, have a method of how to keep track on what's supposed to take place, who's supposed to do what the deadlines are, and hopefully get this thing to close, okay? So with that said, these timelines, you can use it to plot your communication points, because there's many people involved. You're going to have your escrow officer, you're going to have your lender, you're going to have an appraiser, you're going to have inspectors, your transaction coordinator. If you're working with a mentor, your mentor, you're going to have the buyer. If in this case, if you're working with a buyer, or the seller, in some cases both. But so you have to know when you're going to be making contact with these people. It's good to keep track and keep records. Always, I like to keep a journal or a log. Some people call it a log, some people call it a journal, of what has taken place in this transaction. Because when you get busy and you're working on 2-3 deals at one time, it's hard to remember every conversation, what was said, and what is supposed to happen next. So make sure you take notes and keep a good log of what is going on in that transaction. And use your calendar to plot the points of when things are supposed to take place. Same thing with documents. I mean, there's certain documents that are required at certain times. Of course, at the beginning, your contract. And then there could be addendums, there could be counter offers, there could be, oh, I'm sorry, not counter, addendums, there could be additional disclosures. So put everything on your timeline so that you can keep track of what is supposed to take place and who you're supposed to follow up with. And the other important thing is also know what these other people are supposed to be doing. What is it that they're supposed to be taking care of? Because you don't want to just follow up and say, hey, how's it going? It's better to follow up with specific questions. How is the underwriting going? If you're talking to the lender, as the appraisal came in, did the appraisal come in at value? When you communicate with the escrow officer, have you received the funding figures? Is the CD and all these different things? It's better to follow up with specific questions than just say, hey, how's it going? Because if people are busy, they're going to say, oh, it's going good, it's going good. But that's not good information. Okay, so that's another thing that we can talk about too, if we have time, is what each person is supposed to be doing so you know what to follow up with. Okay. Any questions? Because we're going to get into a little bit more detail now on how things operate here in our area, where we're a very fast-paced market, and our transactions are a little bit different than in other areas of the state. And if we're ready to go forward, we'll go forward. Any questions, feel free to ask. Any comments, feel free. And if not, we will continue. So I'm going to try to stay on track. So we're probably going to spend about maybe 15 minutes on the buyer's detailed, the seller's details. And then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about how to foresee potential problems and how to solve them, and what to do to maybe eliminate problems that could come up. And that is key, because what you want to do is have a smooth transaction with as least amount of problems or issues that come up, because it's going to be a better experience for a client, and more likely when they have a good experience, they're going to refer you to their friends and family, or they'll come back to you when they're ready to make the next move. So the key is a smooth transaction. Okay. So next subject that they talk about, best practices for managing the deal. And that's kind of the topic of today. Okay, we're going to talk about managing the deal, all the different things that take place and when the best time to do them is. And they will vary a little bit from one transaction to the next, because not everybody works the exact same way as far as the listing agent. And it's not every transaction is the same, because some will be a regular seller, some might be a trust, some could be a probate. And so there will be some differences, but what we're going to talk about today is the most common things I see out there. So here's a little bit more detail on a buyer timeline. If you look at the bottom, it's going to talk about different times. So right upon acceptance, as we look up above that, of course, we have acceptance. And so once you get all the signatures, now you are in contract. You are on day 0. The following day is day 1. Okay, so always remember that. The day you get in contract is day 0. So what you want to do is, of course, confirmation of the acceptance. It's basically just saying, yes, I received your acceptance. So if you're a buyer or your buyer's agent, you send an offer in and they send it back accepted, by the signature line on the last page, there's going to be confirmation of acceptance. You or your buyers can just initial it, date it, and you send it back, and that's what you call confirmation of acceptance. It doesn't make or break a deal, but it's just part of the things that we should do. And throughout these different steps, there's also going to be times that it's good to ask for referrals. There are different times when you have a good emotion going with your buyer. There's going to be times when they're happy, and it's best time to ask for referrals. And there's different ways to ask for referrals. I've gotten away from the word referral, because a lot of times when you ask for a referral, some people are a little bit hesitant. They just don't like the word referral. Some people are okay with it, but some people are not. So everybody's okay with saying, hey, could you introduce me? So I've gotten to the habit of saying, hey, if there's anybody else that I can help, would you mind introducing me to them? So it just makes it a little bit more friendly approach. And there'll be different times throughout the transaction where it's a good time to ask. So also that day 0, get that contract to the lender. The lender needs the contract so they can get their process started. Get it to the title company to send it to the escrow officer. If there's an attorney involved, this is a little bit one of those different things. If there's an attorney involved, you usually have to send it to the attorney before you get any signatures on it. So that's a whole nother class. And also make sure your clients have copies. And today with DocuSign, as soon as somebody signs it, they're going to get an electronic copy, a signed copy anyway. So, but just confirm that they have it. Now, the other thing you want to do right away too is send the prelim to the lender. The lender needs a contract and the prelim. Prelim is preliminary title report. If you're not familiar with those, get familiar with them, because that is one of the things that you have to look at up front to hopefully eliminate any potential problems. Now, when you send this information to the lender, they have certain things to do. They have to communicate with the title company. And so if it's on a Friday, get that to them as soon as possible, as early in the day as possible, because they still have things to do to communicate with the title company before they can go forward. And if it gets to the end of the day, the title company can't get them what they need, now you're going to lose 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, because title companies are closed. Sometimes it's not possible, but always remember, if it's at the end of the week, get the information to the lender as soon as possible, hopefully on that day 0. If there's an HOA involved, you got to get the lender the HOA information because they need to get a report from the HOA. If it's financing involved, sometimes it's cash, but if there's a lender involved, give them the HOA information because there's what's called a HOA certification. It's called HOA cert for short. And that's where the HOA is going to tell them, okay, there's this many units, this many are owner occupied, this many are rentals, this is the number of people who are behind on their dues. This is our insurance company and all this basic information that the lender needs. And get that to them right away because HOA companies and management companies, very slow to act. And also you're going to call your lender, tell them, hey, look, have me be the access for the appraisal. When you're on the buyer side, sometimes the listing agent wants to do it, but I always like to be there with the appraiser because I like to pull my own comps. And if the situation calls to where I can work with the appraiser, say, have you seen these comps? Maybe these will help. It's always good to be there with the appraiser. And so I always want to be the contact person for the appraiser. Order your inspections if they're not done right up front. And like I say, is a lot of times in our market, you're going to have reports and in disclosures right up front. And a lot of times you're going to go through them and sign them before you even, or when you present your offer. If that's not the case, order your inspections right away because, you know, the markets could be busy and it may take a while to get your inspections done. If you have short contingency periods, you got to make sure you get those inspections done right away. Some companies will get you the report back. If they do the inspection in the morning, they'll get you the report back that same day in the afternoon. If they go in the afternoon, then you'll get it the next day. Not every company is able to do that, but so just make sure you get your inspections ordered right away. And also tell your buyer to check on their insurance. Make sure that they can get insurance and get that quote, and because that's going to be part of for the lender. They need to know how much the insurance is going to be. So that's all upon acceptance. Now that you're going into, or you're in your contingency period, the second side of the page. So there's certain things that take place at the beginning, maybe not on day 1, but at the beginning of the escrow. So number 1, you want to make sure your buyer gets the deposit to escrow. Now today it can be wired or it could be a check. We prefer wires nowadays because a lot of times the title companies don't want to talk to anybody, they don't want to see anybody, they'll still take deposits, they'll still do it, but they're preferring to be wired. Now, one thing about the wires, you may have seen the disclosure, the advisory on wire fraud. It has happened. It's happened to a friend of mine where his buyer got hacked and the deposit, which was $450,000, never made it to the title company. So it's real. And so in the past, I would get the wiring instructions from the title company, say, here, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, go ahead and wire your money to the title company. Don't do that anymore. You take a back seat to that. Have the title company call the buyers directly to handle the deposit. This way they get the wiring instructions directly from the escrow officer. They communicate, they know when to expect it. So just keep your hands off of the deposit from now on, is if it's a wire. Don't get involved in that. Disclosures and HOA docs, if they were not done up front, like I say, then you want to make sure that you follow up with a listing agent, say, hey, when am I going to get the disclosures? When will I get the HOA docs? So you have to follow up with them and get them, and then they have to come in early because we have contingency periods to meet. Now we can get a little bit more into detail on that if they get them to you late. And if they get them to you late towards the end of the contingency period, you will get some extra time, but that'll be in a contract class and we can talk about that another time. But just make sure you start following up, trying to get those disclosures ASAP. Now, if there's new inspections coming, I always like to attend the inspection. You don't have to be there for the whole inspection because you're not going to get much from the inspector anyway while they're busy doing it. But they will be happy to give you a summary of what they found after the inspection is over. So usually what I like to do is I'll go maybe meet them, I'll take off and I'll come back later when they're finishing up, and then they give me a rundown of what they found and they'll show me the pictures. And so, I mean, it's a good thing to do because this way you're already prepared for when that report does come in. Also, you got to review the disclosures. Or I'm sorry, back up one more. Attend the inspections and the appraisal. Like I said at the beginning, if you're the contact person, you can meet the appraiser there and talk to the appraiser. But just be careful with appraisers. They're very sensitive. They don't like to be told what to do. They don't like to be told they're wrong. So you got to kind of feel them out, figure out, what is it that you can do to maybe help out without offending them. That's just how appraisers are. So you want to review all this information before you talk to your client. Now, if everything was, inspections and disclosures were not done up front, now you're doing them during the contingency period. When you get them, review them before you meet with your client, because you don't want to be trying to figure out what it's saying in front of your client. Make sure you already have reviewed them and you know what they say. And this way, when you sit down with your client, you can explain them clearly and go through them a lot quicker. Okay. Then you want to follow up with the lender. Make sure they have everything they need. How is it going? Has the appraisal been ordered? So all this is early in the transaction. So after you have all this reviewed, then you sit down with with the inspections and the disclosures with your buyer. You sit down, you point out the things that you think could be an issue. If they're buying it as is, you got to point certain things out. Well, we didn't see this when we first came in and saw the property, but this is an issue that came up on the report. And so certain things could be a red flag. Certain things could be just, it's not a big deal. It all depends on your buyer and what they're expecting. And the cheaper they get it, or for example, if they get a great deal on it, a lot of the findings on the reports are not going to be that important. But if they're paying top dollar, they're going to expect a very good product or a house in good condition. So that will vary from client to client and from situation to situation. Ask them what they think. Don't tell them. Ask them what they think of the information. If they say, that's pretty good, say, well, you're comfortable? If they are, then that's all good. Then you can say, okay, then we're ready to go release that contingency. But if it's something that you think they should be concerned about, something that you don't think they're going to be able to handle, then you want to kind of give them a little bit more information. And what you can do is say, hey, maybe you should talk to my contractor about this. Because what we want to do is give them good advice. We don't want to get our buyers into a situation where they look back and say, well, gosh, I wish I would have known about this, or he should have told me about this. I wouldn't have bought it. And that is something you do not want to happen. So they may be comfortable with it, but if you feel like, well, this is more than you think, I think maybe you should get a second opinion. There's nothing wrong with getting your contractor to give them a consultation. Make sure they know what they're getting into. And if you have to, get estimates. For example, let's say there's, like right now, I'm dealing with one, the septic tank has a major problem. And they're saying, well, it can't be that bad. But I say, no, I think we need to get checked out a little bit more. So right now we're getting some estimates on what can be done, what the cost is going to be before we release any contingencies. So things like this can come up, even if there's inspections done up front. There may be something that was not inspected, or there may be something that the inspector missed. And so, or the inspector may have said, well, this is an issue, but it's not bad. But then you have your contractor check it out and he says, no, this is a major issue. It's good to make sure you get estimates to find out, is it a major cost? Can the buyer afford it? Or should they back out? Okay. So if it is something that is expensive, there's nothing wrong with asking for a credit, asking for the seller to do the repair or lower the price. It's all going to depend on your buyer. What is in the best interest of your buyer? Normally, if it's a finance deal, a credit or the seller to pay for it is better than lowering the price. Because if the buyer has to pay for it and you're lowering the price on the purchase, they're not going to have that much money left over in their pocket. If they're only putting down, say, 10% or 20%, if you get a price reduction of $20,000, you're only going to have extra $2,000 in your pocket, the 20% down payment. Okay, so if they're financing, it's better to get a credit. That way the buyer comes in with less money out of their pocket, or ask the sellers to do the repair. And I have one right now that we're doing where there was some minor things, nothing major, but we asked them to do the repairs and they agreed to do the repairs. And so it worked out good. A lot of times it's going to depend on the situation. Were you one of 20 offers, you're probably going to have a little bit less leverage. If you were the only offer and there's no other backup offers, nobody else interested, then you have a little bit more leverage. So you just got to kind of weigh things out. it might be time to renegotiate. So that could be a time where you're gonna have to go back and forth with the listing agent. Always make sure that you're getting what's in the best interest of your buyer. Now, once we get through all that, our contingency is ready to be removed. Okay, call the lender, ask them, are you ready to remove your loan and appraisal contingency? Talk to the buyers, are you ready to remove your inspection contingencies? If there's an HOA, there's a couple things about HOAs, and that's a whole nother class as well. There are companies that will review HOA documents because the package that they send has a lot of financials about reserves, upcoming expenses, and sometimes it gets very involved, and it's better to have somebody that knows how to read financial reports to have them review it. So there are different companies that will do that. Takes the liability off of you. It's just like a normal inspection. It could cost about $400, just like paying an inspector to inspect the property. They're inspecting the financial stability of the HOA. Okay, so after you follow up with everybody and say, okay, we're going to remove all contingencies. So you get what's called a contingency removal, and you remove the contingencies that are ready to be removed. Okay, sometimes they're all ready to be removed at the same time. Sometimes you have different dates for them. So whatever is ready to be removed, you remove them. So once we're out of that contingency period, now it's kind of more in the hands of the lender and the buyer. So what you want to do though is of course follow up, make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. You follow up with the lender. And now some of these abbreviations you may have heard, some of them you may not have, but I'll explain what they are. The first one on after contingency removal, and this doesn't happen like right the next day, but sometime between removing the contingencies and getting close to the close of escrow, follow up with the lender, ask how it's going. Did you get the CTC? CTC stands for clear to close. That means that they got all the conditions in, the underwriter said, okay, we're ready to go to docs. And that is kind of like, okay, good. It's all downhill from here. The next one, you have a CD. The lender will send out electronically in an email to the buyer what's called a CD. Not a music thing, but a CD stands for closing disclosure. It gives them all the numbers, the price, their down payment, the interest rate, the expenses, everything is spelled out on that CD. And that gets electronically signed by the buyer, and that starts a 3-day period. So the 3-day period is when they can sign the documents. They cannot sign before 3 days is up. Okay, so that is very important because once the CD goes out, well, let me rephrase that. Once the CD is acknowledged by the buyer, then you know you can sign off in as little as 3 days. Follow up with the lender, have the docs been ordered. Follow up with the title company, say, hey, have the docs arrived in title yet? Because there's times when the lender say, oh yeah, docs have been ordered, but they're super busy and they may not get to title for another day. Maybe because sometimes the lenders will say 24 to 48 hours for docs, which means they're busy and they may take 2 days before they get the docs into title. So that's why you follow up with both. So then what you want to do is when you're talking to the title company, you ask them for the estimated closing statement. Make sure everything is right, review it. If you need help reviewing an estimated closing statement, get help with somebody or from somebody that knows how to read them. Make sure everything is correct as per the contract, and then tell the title company, can you schedule the sign off with my buyers? And today, buyers are not going to the title company. There's a few that are starting to do it again, but with COVID-19, 90% of them are going to be a mobile notary going to their house, to their job, or sometimes they meet in a parking lot. But there's very few sign-offs in the title company now. But make sure that you have them set the appointment directly with the escrow officer, because it's always a hassle when your buyer says, hey, can you set the appointment for me? And then you get a time from the escrow officer, you relay it back to your buyer and say, well, that doesn't really work for me, and they have to go back and forth. Have them set it up between themselves. Confirm if there's any work being done. If the seller agreed to do any work, make sure that work was done. Make sure it's completed. And then one thing you can do is remind the buyers, just as a friendly reminder, hey, you're getting ready to close escrow, call your utilities, make sure you have them shut off the day we close escrow, because you don't want to be paying water, PG&E, or whatever after it's not your home anymore. So then you want to schedule a walkthrough. Make sure the home warranty has been ordered and is in title. So the home warranty, if you're not familiar with it, it's just like a car warranty. It covers a lot of things in the house, but not everything. So get familiar with home warranties. If you're paying a good price on the house, most of the time you'll get the seller to pay for the home warranty. So that's all in between removing your contingencies and right before closing. So as we go into the pre-closing and the closing stage, of course you have the sign-off scheduled, and always I like to go to the sign-off with my clients. Reason why is because it's an exciting time, it's getting close for them, they feel good, and so it's a good time to ask for referrals. Anytime there's a benefit from them, anytime they feel good, anytime they feel like they got to win, it's a good time to ask for referrals. Doesn't mean you have to ask for them on every occasion, but just keep it in mind, because that is where you want to be, where you don't have to be out hunting and hunting and hunting for business. You're getting calls, your phone's ringing from referrals and repeat business. Okay. Arrange with a listing agent how you're going to get the keys. How are the keys going to be left in the lockbox and you're going to get them? Are they going to be in his office? Are you guys going to meet? Make sure that the openers are there, the garage door openers, anything, any warranties, anything that comes with the house, make sure it's all there. And important, always ask them, can you tell your seller to check the car for the remote in the car? Because it happens quite a bit. The seller puts a garage door remote on the counter and they drive off and they forget they have one hanging on their visor. So always remind them about the remote in the car. Then you want to check with the funding, check with the lender, say, hey, and you don't call the bank directly, you call your loan agent and say, hey, is the loan funded yet? And then after, you also check with the title company. Have you received funds? And once again, if it's after a certain point in the day, they may not receive the funds until the following day. Because if the lender funds after 2 o'clock, most likely the title company will not receive those funds until the next day. Okay, so title company, they communicate recording confirmation. And what that means is once they receive all the funds, the buyer's funds, the lender's funds, everything is signed off, everything is complete, they send somebody to the county recorder to record the new grant deed, the deed of trust if there's a loan involved, and then the county will send confirmation to the title company saying, okay, it's done, the recording went through successfully. Then we get notification, depending on the title company, could be an email from the escrow officer. If they have an automated system, you'll get an email from that title company, and it'll say, congratulations, we are on record, escrow is now closed. Then you call up and you congratulate your buyer, meet him at the property. It's always good to meet him at the property, hand him the keys right there. It's a great feeling, good time to ask for referrals. And then after that, follow up with them, see how the moving is going. Sometimes you can go by and say, you know, take them lunch, take them a pizza, you know, just, you're trying to build up that relationship so they always remember you and they come back to you. Okay, so you're gonna visit them after a while, make sure everything is okay. And then after that, there's all these other systems that you can use to keep in touch with them, because I think the statistics show that people move on an average of every 7 years. So you can't be going by every day for 7 years, but they do have these automated systems where it'll send them different emails, it sends them different information. You can send them cards every now and then, but always keep in touch with them. Okay. Any questions on the buyer side? Any comments, questions? Feel free, because I know we went through a lot right now.
Yes, my name is Alex, and I just have a quick question on the when ordering the inspections. I heard someone once what you said, which kind of makes sense, especially where we are here in the Silicon Valley, where everything is moving really quick. But they said usually, what you said, inspections should be ordered as soon as possible when they're not done. I heard someone saying, well, my question pretty much is, what if later on something happens and they have to cancel the transaction for any reason and the inspections have already been done? That's kind of like an expense for the buyer.
Correct. Yeah, the buyers, they have the right to inspect anything and everything they want. If they order them and they pay for them, yeah, they're not going to get a refund because the work has been done. But you have to have the inspections before you remove your contingencies. You can't remove your contingencies and without knowing the true condition of the property. So it's just one of those things. It's a minor risk, but it's better than going past your contingency period and getting into a problem with the transaction being late on certain things. It's just part of doing business as a buyer. You do have certain expenses. In this area, it's a little bit easier, and the reason why is because most of the listings are going to have the inspections up front, but there's going to be those certain transactions where they're not. It's just a normal thing. They have, they pay for their inspections, and if it doesn't go through, they won't get a refund. Okay, the only things that will come in, reports that will come in where you don't get charged for it, is the NHD report, the Natural Hazard Disclosure Report. If the escrow doesn't close, nobody gets charged for that. And also the title report. If it doesn't close, nobody gets charged for that. Okay, but inspections, there is a cost of doing them, and there are no refunds.
Thank you.
Okay, so nobody else has a question? We'll move on.
I have one question.
Sure.
It's kind of going back a little bit beginning, but you had mentioned something about the wire fraud and that we shouldn't be, or we should be hesitant to actually wire things electronically and have the title company, I guess, call to provide instructions. Can you kind of elaborate on that? Okay,
so in the past, before all this wire fraud happened, part of the title report, there was a page in the back of the report, there was wire instructions. So we would just take that page out, give it to our buyer, say, here's the wire instructions, go to your bank, give it to your bank, and then they wire that directly to the title company. But because of all the wire fraud, we no longer get involved with it. I mean, there may be some agents that still do, but I say absolutely do not get in the middle of electronic deposits to the title company. When I get a buyer in contract, first day I send the escrow officer the buyer's information, phone number, emails. I say, please contact the buyer to arrange the deposit. This way, the title company is given the instructions directly to the buyer. So now it's between just the buyer and the title company. I have no liability there because I did not touch it. And so it's a little bit safer for us to do it that way. And also, it's just one more step of prevention of something happening, because it did happen to a friend of mine where the wire got hijacked. And that was a few years ago, and it's a bad situation. So I have the title company contact them directly and confirm that it was, and let your buyer know the title company is going to reach out to you to arrange the deposit.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's move on to the seller timeline. It's similar, but there's a few differences. Okay, so day one. Or let's go back, day zero, okay? First day of the first day of the contract is day zero. So confirm the receipt of the offer. Okay, so the offer comes in, let the other agent know, yes, I received your offer. Review the offer before you present it to your client. Make sure you read everything on it, make sure what's in it, what are they asking for, what are they offering. If there's a loan involved, talk to the lender, find out how strong the loan is, where it's at in the process. Has it been through underwriting? What have they confirmed already? Also, down payment, confirm they do have the money. If it's in this area, 20% down payment could be a lot of money. That could be $300,000 in some cases. So that's not just, a small amount of money. So you want to make sure they have their down payment ready to go. Talk to the buyer's agent, find out, well, what is it that they really liked about this house? Why are they putting the offer in? Especially if you have multiple offers, because when you have multiple offers, you got to really weed out the ones that are kind of like, well, if we get it, we get it. If we don't, we don't. You want somebody that's motivated to get that house. Okay, so talk to the buyer's agent, get a little bit of background on the buyer. And also, before you present the offer to your seller, check the area for new competition, because there's listings popping up every day. There's things that are selling every day. So make sure you know what's going on currently in their neighborhood to let them know that because of this took place, this is probably a pretty good offer. Or you can say that, well, this one just closed at a much higher price, so maybe we can get more now. So know what's currently happening in the neighborhood before you go present the offer. Okay? So when you're there presenting all the offers, you go over the pros and the cons of each offer. If there's multiple offers, if it's just one offer, it's a lot easier. And they're either going to accept it, they're going to counter it, or they're going to reject it. If somebody comes in with a crazy low offer, it's not even, I just say reject it. Let them come back with a sensible offer. If it's close, then of course you write up a counter offer. Or if it's a great offer, clean, ready to go, you just accept it. There's usually something that needs countering in all offers. There's not a whole lot to get accepted as written. Not impossible, but just counter offers. Sometimes it's just, there might be something left out of the contract. It has nothing to do with the price. It has nothing to do with the terms. It's just that maybe there was a mistake that it should be cleared up now before it becomes an issue with the lender down the road. Okay, so get the acceptance or the counter offer, and now you're in contract. So if you accept the offer as it's written, you send the accepted offer back to the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent is going to send you the confirmation. If you send a counter offer and they accept your counter offer and send you the accepted counter offer, then you send them the confirmation of acceptance. And you don't accept, you don't confirm the offer and the counter offer. You only confirm the last counter offer. If there's no counter offers, then you have confirmation right on the contract. If there's counter offers going back and forth, the last counter offer is the only one that needs to be confirmed. Okay. Make sure that the contract gets to the lender, the title company, an attorney if there's one involved, and your client. Very similar to the buyer side, but our job is to follow up on everybody. I'm going to make sure that buyer is doing his part or her part, even just like I was representing the buyer, because if they have something fall through the cracks, it affects my seller. So always follow up, even if it's with the other side. Make sure the lender has the prelim, and you will have all the lender's information because you're going to have a letter from that lender with the offer. And before you even present that offer, you're going to call the lender, like I said earlier, to see how the offer is going or see how the approval process is going. So make sure that lender has everything they need right off the bat. The contract, the prelim, and if there's an HOA, the HOA company's information so they can get the HOA cert. And then also talk to the lender, say, hey, can I be your contact or the access person for the appraiser? Okay, all that's on the first day. Now we're in the contingency period. Of course, what you want to do is, once again, confirm the deposit has been made. In some of these contracts that are coming in, if they want to make them strong, instead of leaving it the default of a 3 business days to get the deposit into escrow, they'll say within 1 business day. So make sure you know what the contract says, and then you follow up with your escrow officer. Hey, has the deposit came in yet? Sometimes you're going to get an email with the deposit, confirmation of the deposit before you even call, but just put that on your timeline as something that you're going to do. Confirm the deposit made it to escrow. And then create a calendar of events for your client. In these calendars, same on the buyer side. I don't know if I missed it or it's not on there, but create a calendar of events for your clients saying, okay, these are the important dates. Here's our contingency removal date. This is the date we need to do this. This is when we're approximately signing off. This is approximately when you're going to need to do this. And this is the day we close escrow and get your keys. Some of the dates are solid because you're going to have, based on the contract, you're going to have certain dates that are just, this is the date. Some of them will vary a little bit because you never know exactly what day the loan documents are going to hit or what day they're going to fund until you get farther into the escrow. So just let them know these dates are solid. These dates may vary a bit. How are we doing in time? Oh, we're doing okay. All right. So if the disclosures were not done up front, you got to rush and get them done because you have to get those to the buyer right away. So always do your disclosures and reports up front on your listings if possible. And when the inspections are being done, meet the inspectors there, get an idea of what's going on. And this way, if there's certain things that, well, we can probably take care of that. That way there's less issues on the report. And this is going back to before you put it even on the market. So that would be another class, that's preparing your listing. But let's just stick with the theme here. This is when you're in contract already. If things come up, at least you want to know, talk to the inspectors. They'll give you a summary on what they found. And this way you can be prepared if the buyer's going to ask for any repairs. Review the inspections when they come in, review them up front. Also attend your appraisal. Make sure you have comps ready to go. And once again, with appraisers, be careful how you talk to them. You don't want to offend them, because appraisers are probably some of the most stubborn people in the world when it comes to admitting they may have made a mistake. So you got to know how to talk to them. All right, so follow up with the agent and the lender if the appraisal came in, because we won't know when it comes in. So you got to call the lender to find out if the appraisal came in, and did it come in at value. And what that means is, did the appraisal come in at least the contract price? That's what we're looking for. If it comes in below the contract price, then the buyer has the right and the option to ask the seller to lower the price. And then once again, it's a point of negotiation. Ask the lender how things are going, any conditions that are hard to meet, and you want to follow up with the buyer's agent on how are they doing on their contingency removals. So, and always call maybe a couple days before they're due. Just say, hey, how are things going? Are you going to be able to remove your contingencies on time? Just want to follow up with you. Make it a friendly call. And let's say they come in with a request. How do you handle that? So let's say the buyer comes in and says, well, we want the seller to fix this, this, and this. That's where you have to figure out, okay, well, are they our only offer? Or do we have backup offers? And how big of a deal is this request? How much is it going to cost? You may need to get an estimate for it. But then you got to make sure you have all this information. If it's beyond, a simple little repair that the seller can do himself, or he may have to call somebody, get an estimate on that. Find out what it's going to cost. Find out if it makes sense to do that repair for the buyer. If not, then you got to try to negotiate with them. Say, hey, well, how about if we give you a credit instead of fixing it? Or how about if we do these two repairs, but not this one? So it's just a point of negotiation. Our goal is to make sure that we get this deal to close and make sure that our client's best interest is met. Okay. So, and then once again, once you get beyond this, let's say we come into agreement, the buyer says, okay, yeah, we'll take the credit. Remind them, remove your contingencies now. We already figured things out, so we need the contingency removal. Okay, any questions on this part? Nothing, all right. So I guess we're ready to move forward a little bit. Okay. So continuing on, after the contingencies are removed, just kind of similar, very similar to the buyer side, follow up with the lender, ask about the appraisal, ask about conditions. And I always like to ask the lender, are there any outstanding conditions that can pose a problem? And a lot of times they come back and say, nah, just updated bank statements, updated pay stubs, very easy stuff. But every now and then, if it's, for example, a self-employed person or a business that's buying it, it gets a little bit more complicated on the financing side. So always ask for conditions that may be hard to meet, because you want to be prepared if there's going to be any problems, if there's going to be any delays. That's why you have to have good contact, good conversations with the lender. Even though it's not your lender, it's a buyer's lender, but this is part of our job, following up. Once they get past all that, once again, CTC, clear to close, the CD, closing disclosure, and docs. Follow up with the lender on that. See when these are taking place. Once you know they have the clear to close, that's really good news. Once the CD goes out and gets acknowledged, now that's real good news. When the docs hit title, that's great news. Okay, so follow up on all these things. And then you can inform your sellers, hey, this took place. Hey, we're getting closer. This took place. Okay. After all that, now you know the deal is going to close. So what you want to do is check on the seller's move. Make sure they're on schedule, because if they have to be out at a certain time, they need to be out at a certain time. Make sure that things are moving along. Remind them also about utilities, about shutting them off. And if I go back to the buyer side, I think I said to have them shut off. That one is to have them turned on. When you're working with a buyer, you tell them, call the utilities that you bought this house, not to shut the utilities off, just to transfer the account into their name, okay? On the seller, that's the one where you're calling to have them canceled at the close of escrow. If you have the property staged, call the stager, give them a heads up, because sometimes it takes them a few days to get there, because you have to get all the staging out. because it's not part of the sale. Follow up with title, see if the docs are in, and ask them to send you the estimated closing statement for your seller. You want to make sure that everything is correct as per contract. One of the things you want to always look at, if you're working with a property that's a county property, not the city of San Jose, make sure there's no city transfer tax. That's one of the mistakes that come up once in a while. Make sure that everything is correct. If you need help reading the settlement statement, get some help. Tell them, okay, everything looks good, just go ahead and schedule the sign off and have the title company, once again, directly communicate with the seller. If the seller is supposed to do any work, make sure it was done before close of escrow. And then the buyer's agent will be calling you to schedule a walkthrough. Make sure the sellers are aware when the walkthrough is going to happen. Okay. Then for pre-closing and closing, if you can, go to the sign-off. It's an exciting thing. And seller sign-offs are much easier than buyer sign-offs. They're much easier if the buyer has financing involved because it's a lot less documents. So it goes quicker and it's a good experience and it's a good time for ask for referrals. Okay. Make sure things are on time with the move out. And usually when the sign-off is done at the seller sign-off or at the buyer sign-off, both sign-offs, I'll tell the escrow officer, hey, thanks for the sign-off. We're going to take a few minutes before we leave. A little bit different nowadays because, like I say, most sign-offs are mobile. But after the sign-off, ask them if they had any questions. Do they understand everything? That's when you check with them how the move is going. You're going to be out on time. You have everything cleaned up. Just go down a list of different little reminders. Make sure they know where to leave the keys, the garage door openers. Once again, remind them of the garage door opener that's in the car. And then you have to go do your final check of the property. Make sure everything is done that was supposed to be done. Make sure that things are out of the house and get your items. And that would be if you have your sign that you put out, you got to grab your sign. Some people have the sign company store the sign. If you store your own signs, make sure you pull the sign down. If it's your own flyer box, get the flyer box back. Right now, we're not supposed to have brochures. But if you have anything inside the house, such as a brochure stand, shoe covers, in today's market, hand sanitizer, face mask, make sure you get everything out of the property. Make sure the keys are there, the garage door openers are there. And then you check with the title company on funding. You can check with the lender, but it's always better to check with the title company because it doesn't count until it lands in the title company. Okay. And then once again, title company will communicate the recording, the official close of escrow. And that is when you can hand the key or tell the sellers, hey, congratulations, escrow is closed. You should receive your funds. If it's early in the day, they'll receive the funds via wire that same day. If it's after 2 o'clock, they'll probably receive the funds the following day. Make sure you remove your lockbox. Make sure you call for the sign to come down, change the MLS. And the sellers are feeling good at close of escrow. Once again, ask to be introduced to anybody else that you may be able to help. Okay, and that's your timeline for the escrow on the seller side. What time do we have? Any questions? If not, we will continue. If you do have a question, go ahead, feel free to jump in. So that is a really good overview of what takes place, what we need to follow up on. And another thing that they want to talk about is risk avoidance. And there are certain things that you need to know up front that could pose a potential problem, and it's best to try to solve those before you even get started. So some of the things that can come up are conditions on the property that turn up in an inspection, or something happens to the property during the escrow. So let's just say I had a situation once where the property was fine, everybody removed contingencies, we're getting ready to close escrow, and it was in the middle of the winter time. A huge storm came up, very windy, a lot of rain. It tore a couple shingles off the roof. Water leaked into the master bedroom closet. Sheetrock was all wet. And this is about 3 days before close of escrow. Per contract, it's the seller's responsibility, whether it's their fault or not. They had to fix it. So, like I say, in this business, there's so many variables involved. You never know what could happen. That's something nobody could have done to prevent because you can't predict a storm. But there are other things that you can find out up front that could help prevent any issues. Before we get into that, one important thing is the other agent or the agent on the other side. If you're the listing agent, the buyer's agent, if you're the buyer's agent, sorry, the listing agent on the other side, it's good to have a good relationship with them. Build up a rapport, get to know them, because there is going to be a time when you face each other again. It's always good to have a good relationship with other agents. And another thing that is very important, sometimes things get a little bit tense and the agent may do something or say something that upsets you. And a lot of people, first thing they want to do is they're going to type an email, a nasty email, or they're going to make a phone call and tell them off because you don't want to look like you're a weakling. But let me just tell you, if you're in that situation where you're going to type a nasty email, don't send it. Just walk away, calm down, and think about this. How far are we into this transaction? How will this, what I'm saying, affect the rest of the escrow? And will I see this agent again in another transaction? Then go back after you thought about that and retype your email. Sometimes it happens, you have to do it 2 times, 3 times. You always want to make sure you respond in a manner that's going to benefit the situation. Don't get emotional and react in a way that's going to make it even worse. Take your time when things get tense, because it's possible. Things do happen. Things don't go exactly as planned, and this side wants this and you want this, and it becomes a little tense. Stay calm, and especially stay calm in front of your clients. You don't want your clients to see you upset, sad, mad, or anything like that. They're looking to you as their leader and for guidance. They need to see you calm, okay? And believe me, it does make a difference. So we got a little bit of time left. So what I want to do is talk about some things that you can find out up front that could eliminate or minimize potential problems and issues in an escrow. Now, these are some of the questions, and these are geared more toward the seller because I'm focusing more on listings right now. So these are some of the questions I always want to know. Is how long have you owned the home? Very important, and the reason why is because if it's less than 2 years, there's a possible potential capital gains tax. How long have you lived in the home? Because even if they owned it for 10 years, but they only lived in it for a year, there could be a potential for capital gains tax problem. So I find out how long they've been living in the home as well as how long they own the home. If they don't live in it, is the home just vacant? Is it a rental? Is it a vacation home? Find out all these things. And so certain things you're going to have to find out and say, well, you know what? I think you need to talk to your tax person to find out if there's going to be any tax consequences. If it's an investment property, are they doing a 1031 exchange? Hopefully they are, because now you got the sale, plus you're going to have a purchase. And that's a whole nother class on a 1031 exchange. Very interesting class and a good class. Is a home in a trust? If it's in a trust, tell them you're going to need a copy of the trust for the title company. Find out if they're going to use the same attorney if they need any legal help on it. If there is an attorney involved, especially if it's an estate sale, like if somebody passed away, the parents passed away, and the kids are now selling the house, it's in a trust, get that listing agreement signed ASAP, because you don't want them to go to the attorney first, because the attorney could possibly say, oh, I have a good broker I'm working with, we'll have him sell the home for you. Get that listing agreement signed ASAP before they go see the attorney if possible. Because once you have a listing agreement signed, the attorney will not try to take it away from you. And it's not that they do it on purpose, but we all have our network. We have a network of lenders who we refer to people. We have escrow officers we refer to people. Inspectors, they have brokers that they refer to people. And I know that for a fact because I have attorneys that refer me. So get that listing agreement signed ASAP when an attorney is involved. Okay? Ask if there's anybody else has an interest in the property, any other decision makers. And sometimes in certain families, the kids are on title, but the mom or the dad call the shots. So find out, is anybody else a decision maker? Anybody else have an interest in the property? Did Uncle Joe lend you $50,000 to buy it? So get all this information up front. Get the mortgage balance and their timing. When does it have to be sold and why? What is their goal? What's their reason for selling? Because you have to know all this stuff up front. is there an HOA? Of course, if it's a condo, townhouse, you're gonna have an HOA. But there's some single family homes in a community that you could also have an HOA. So always find out. Now this one here on the bottom, any tax liens, this whole sentence here is really important. Find out if they have any tax liens. Find out if they're current on their federal taxes and state taxes. Is there any judgments, any lawsuits going on? Are they in bankruptcy? I mean, if they're in Chapter 13, that opens up a whole nother session on things that have to take place. And very important, back in 2008 and 9 and 10, there was a lot of loan modifications. Some people got a loan modification, they were able to keep their home, and now they're selling it. If there was a loan modification on the current loan they have now, not if they refinanced since then, but on this current loan that they did a modification in the past, check out the modification papers, because some of those modifications, they say, well, we're going to reduce your, or we're going to defer part of your mortgage balance so that you can qualify in this lower amount. And so that was one of the things they did. But in the fine print, it said your mortgage balance is only $400,000, so we can calculate a lower payment for you. But you still owe this other $150,000 if you ever sell or refinance the house. If that is the case, you have to know that up front, because what's going to happen is the buyer or the sellers are going to think, oh, we're going to net $500,000 out of the sale of our home. And then they get their payoff from the bank and says, oh no, you're only going to get $350 because you still owe us $150 that was deferred. So very important question. And even though it's a long time ago, some people had their home saved through those modifications and they are barely selling now. So ask that. If they're seniors, ask them if they have ever had any assistance. Were they ever in the hospital and they need assistance? What that means is they didn't have insurance, or their insurance didn't cover everything, and then the county had to step in and they offered assistance. So what happens is, during those tense situations, is a very emotional thing where it's the hospital staff will come to the family and say, okay, we need you to sign this, this, and this so we can give them treatment. One of those forms that gets signed, if the county is giving assistance, is called an agreement to reimburse. And what that means is the county says, yeah, we're going to pay for this right now, but if you ever are able to pay us back in the future, then you will owe us this money we're lending you now. So it will not show up on the title report because it's just under their name. And so what happens is, when you're selling a home, the title company is going to run a name search on your sellers. Do they have any other outstanding debts? Are there any judgments against them? Any tax liens that are not showing on our prelim? And there's been times that that agreement to reimburse shows up and they say, well, we don't owe the county anything. And then they think back and they look at the dates and say, oh yeah, grandma was in the hospital at that time. So younger people, most likely it's not going to happen. People that have always had insurance is not going to come up. But older people that may have been on some kind of assistance in the past, you always want to make sure. And one thing you can do, if you don't want to ask them, just tell the title company, hey, can you run a name search? I just want to make sure that nothing is going to pop up later on. And they'll do that. But it's still good to know if they had these issues, because the title company can run a name search on them. Nothing pops up. But let's just say whoever has that information, they decide to file it during the escrow. So at the closing, they're going to run that name search again, and it could pop up at that time. So it's good to know this stuff up front. If they've had any title transfers, and this happens a lot in family situations, they say, oh yeah, my parents signed the house over to me. If that happened, they just signed it, went to the county recorder by themselves, then that's what you call an uninsured transfer or deed. And so what that means is there was no insurance, no title insurance on that transfer. So the title company is going to have to do some extra work to get that taken care of. And what they do is they try to find that person to sign the house over to them, get them to sign an affidavit to say, yes, this was a transfer that I did, it's legit. But if they can't find that person, then it becomes a little bit more of an issue. Not something that cannot be resolved, But it's good to know up front because it's better to resolve these issues up front than at the last minute when it causes delays. Also find out if it's a divorce. Was there a divorce? Are they going through divorce? And if it's going through divorce, that's a different issue than if there was an old divorce. But when it comes to divorce, if it's an old divorce, you got to find out if the other spouse is owed anything. If it's a current divorce, then there's a likelihood that you may have to work with the attorney, or you may have to work with another agent because the husband and wife hate each other. They don't trust the other person's agent, so say, no, I want my agent. And the husband says, I want my agent. So that's when you call it co-listing. So all these things. Oh, and the last one, any items leased. And that could be solar, it could be water filtration system. Find out if anything is leased on the property, because especially with solar, it could be a lien on the property. They call them the, drawing a blank on it, but the solar companies, they have something where they get a government loan or something like that. I don't know all the details, but find out if there's a lease, find out if it's on the title. If it's bought and paid for example, they didn't finance it, they just bought it outright, then no problem. It's a good selling point then. Okay, so any questions on these? It's good to find out things up front so you can solve any potential issues right off the bat. So these are some of the things that I have found over the years and been through it. And so I know they come up, not often, but they do come up. And if you can be the one that says, oh yeah, we have this issue, we're gonna solve it right now, then you just look good and more likely to get a referral. So we're a little bit past time. So do we have any questions or comments? Anything at all?
I have actually one question regarding appraisers. You said that their character is challenging at times. Is there a way that you choose your own appraiser that you get along with or you had experience with that is more kind of workable? Well,
You don't choose an appraiser. The appraisal is done through a third party called an appraisal management company. Back after the mortgage meltdown, they had some changes in the industry. One of them was the lender was no longer allowed to talk to the appraiser. So now they have a middleman. It's called the appraisal management company. So the lender will send a request to the management company, and then the management company will just pick one in the area. And so and what they do is it's kind of, I guess, where they just put it up on their website, and the appraisers in the area that are looking and say, oh yeah, I'll do that one, and they pick it. And then they contact somebody for access to the property so they can do the appraisal. Now, if it's your standard tract home, there's nothing out of the ordinary, most appraisers will get it right. But if it's a unique property, maybe in the Rose Garden area, Nagley Park, Willow Glen, it's a unique home. When that appraiser calls to set the appointment, that's when I want to interview that appraiser, find out, are they familiar with this area? How long have they been appraising? How many appraisals they've done in this neighborhood? And if I don't think they're going to be able to do a good appraisal in that area because that's a special area, I'll just call the lender. I'll say, well, I'll have to get back to you on the appointment. I'll call the lender and say, hey, you know what? Cancel it and order it again because this appraiser doesn't know the area. Other than that, if it's just regular house, should not be a big deal. But when you talk to them, it's hard to say, but they're very sensitive on their work. Mm-hmm. And so usually the way I approach it is I say, oh, I'm not sure how busy you've been, but if you need any help with comps, I have some comps here. Have you seen this one? So I'm not saying, hey, use this comp or this is how it should be done. I'll just offer the help. And then I start the conversation talking about the different properties. And it's, oh yeah, I've seen that one, because they don't go in the properties that are the comps. We can, because when we're previewing property, we can go inside. Or when we're showing property, you know, we're inside. So on the MLS, it may have professional photos that make it look really good. But if you can tell the appraiser, oh, you know, I've been in that house and the kitchen, it looks good in the pictures, but it's old, it's outdated. And so that kind of information helps. And also, if there's been a lot of work done on the home that you are involved with. For example, maybe they updated, you know, a super duper, some kind of a network system in the house, or something that like the smart homes, a lot of features like that. You don't see it when you're doing an appraisal. You're just measuring, doing the floor plan, taking pictures. But if you give them all this extras that have gone into the home, that can help you as well. And that's why I like to meet the appraiser. But very, very important though, when you have those unique homes, make sure that the appraiser knows the area and has worked in that area before.
So they don't normally give the assignment to somebody who's familiar with the area, especially if they are appraisers. That's their job, to be familiar and to know.
Well, the management company says, okay, it's in, let's just say, for example, 95112. In that zip code, there's several different neighborhoods, completely different. That's where Negley Park is. That's where downtown is. That's where like a real lower level of homes are, all in that zip code. So they don't say, okay, this is Negley Park home, we're going to do a Negley Park appraiser. They just put it out in the area. So all the appraisers that work in that area, basically it's San Jose, or could be the whole South Bay area, they can pick it. So maybe they just say, oh yeah, well, I'm familiar, I live in Santa Clara. I know San Jose, but he may not know that neighborhood. Okay, so that's why when you have a unique type of home in a unique neighborhood, I always want to make sure the appraiser is familiar with that neighborhood, because the neighborhood right next door could be a $200,000 difference for the exact same home, just because it's out of that neighborhood. And this is exactly what happened to me in the past, and that's why I have this talking about it, because it happened and we had to get a new appraisal because that first appraiser did not know the area at all.
I see.
Anything else? All right, well, I think somebody else may have another class coming up. We're a little bit over time, but you know what? There was a lot to cover, and I think we got it all in. Hey, Laura.
Hi, you did great. Hi.
Hi, whoever that is.
Thank you so much, Randy. Appreciate it. And thank you guys all for attending Ignite. Like I put in the chat already, if you guys want any of the recordings, just reach out to your office to get them. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Cheers.